What I want to put into the recorded notebook in this hour is a dovetail formulation that I believe is necessary to get um, facility with for my work to be reasonably effective. And of course, we know that I've been put into assisted living by brutal punishment of an unusual nature by a cast of characters who constitute rivals, collegiate rivals. So I'm slowed down to the point where my work is very difficult to make progress with due to the semi-paralysis of Parkinson's and the trauma that I'm recovering from as I decline. But I am in assisted living, and hopefully I'll be able to make the best of what I have to summarize with. I have visual displays, so I'm not going to use in this brief. The dovetail I'm describing pertains primarily to the selection process whereby I was targeted as an American and made a mockery of at a very young age to gain the approval of other Americans, even though I was attacked symbolically as an American as a target. What this dovetails with is, of course, the mirror system in the Hollywood scene that originates in Fayum and gathered momentum through Nazi Germany, which selected me and has used me. And maybe I'll talk a little about Seattle Collegiate to simply see it as a flea market rummage because of what they consider to be the rules of cheating. Seattle has distinctive rules of cheating. And they use these rules of cheating in brutally inducting me into the role that they had worked out with the Axis Alliance, who targeted me and why. To give you some examples of why I caused so much resentment. My family were pilgrims at Plymouth Meeting. So naturally, Seattle's Native American community said no. And they had Sean Lennon and Yoko Ono super funding that no. And I was a little boy flew under the Texas flag, from the ship that flew under the Texas flag called the Little Queen of the San Jacinto in World War II. So Sean Lennon and Yoko Ono doubly said no. They selected me by British hatred for my symbolism as a man with the name James McRyland Crary, which is Scotch distinction. So Paul McCartney said, we'll use him rather than let him come into his own. And of course, Don Toon has a passion about knocking down people when they're too young to defend themselves from behind and then making up tall tales. At least he feels passionate about it when it came to me. My grandfather, Wardmore, was a newspaper man of some distinction and achievement. He was a friend of John Nehart, the Nebraska Nobel laureate. My mother used to go to the Nehart's residence for family weekend vacations. They were very good friends. Nehart wrote Black Elk Speaks. So my grandfather was very concerned to maintain not only the history of what was done to the Native Americans, but his disdain for the men and soldiers in the forts who did it. And he took me around the Midwest. He was a man of the Ozarks. And of course, UW Dialectical said I was trying to subvert the dominant paradigm. They did that when I mentioned the fact that two black kids rescued me from an armed mob of Klansmen who were kicking my brains in. They said rather than see it as genuine relief and memory, they saw it as subverting the dominant paradigm. So UW Dialectical said no, and they, along with the extreme right wing militarists of military Christianity, the Christian Zionists, they called me having a one night stand with a woman from India in Pittsburgh at a college Custer's last stand. So you get the idea of how these drooling symbolists put things together. You get to the second mirror, which is how that role that they negotiated was inducted into celluloid as a mirror system in films like Diva, where it comes out that they were targeting me by my birthday. They used my social security system, which begins with the numbers 1984. So it was long thought out. I mean, it wasn't. If you want to believe John Lennon really got killed, it wasn't just that. But the evidence shows that he was involved and he was role playing. They evacuated him. And that's the substance of why there's a blackout on it, because that's the whole overthrow shebang. They were not only overthrowing the United States, they were overthrowing reality. And you can fact check that academically. The reason why I'm right to testify about this is because it's academically consistent with the evidence. Toon and Reagan's attorneys, hot dogs from Israel for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, had me in D.C. the day Reagan claims he was shot. He comes out and waves to me, and they give me a brochure, a legal brochure. It says there's no such thing as objective reality, only what the jury believes. So it's like Abraham Lincoln saying you can fool some of the people all the time and all of the people some of the time. You can't fool all the people all the time. And Toon and Reagan slapped five and said, want to make a bet. They want to fool all the people all the time, and John Lennon is their medium for trashing reality itself. And that's consistent with the evidence. I didn't believe that at first. If you trace the intellectual heritage of my response to this, it was indignation that they were using Lennon to cover for what I discovered on Mount Desert Island about the genocidal attack that was in operation. I at first believed Lennon had killed. It was the evidence that subverted that. So Seattle, of course, were pimping for Sean and Yoko. So they disabled me. They put me out. They plotted to kill me on behalf of somebody who tried to kill me. Literally. On behalf of the Jewish community, they did this, who had attacked me and tortured me because of what they call the too good principle, being a pilgrim, a family name from the Revolutionary War. A friend of John Nehart, 1812, service in World War II. My father was chair of philosophy education at the University of Pittsburgh and drove a school bus in retirement. He has a Jewish son who he loved more than any of his other children, in my opinion. And the same forces put Donahue on his obituary and got rid of him. Nosferatu, Donahue, Jimmy Who,